Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Legends of the Wild. Today I am joined by Lukas Leaf of Sportsmen for the Boundary Waters. We are going to talk about everything Boundary Waters related, as that is a kind of a hot topic right now when it comes to the world of conservation. And it's kind of funny that we're doing this now because I actually recorded a real little mini episode with Lukas a couple months ago about this when nothing was really happening. But before we get into all that, Lukas, welcome to the show. Just glad to have you on and just excited to talk about the boundary waters and everything that means for sportsmen and women and anybody who likes to recreate outside.
Yeah, Sam, thank you so much for having me on. It's an honor and a pleasure. I appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely. It was when all of the current stuff that's going on, went through the House. We'll get into all this, but basically there's a moratorium on a mine that could be near the boundary waters. And the reason I wanted to have you on is because this is a time-sensitive issue, and this is something people are always wondering how they can get involved in conservation, and that's why I wanted to do this show immediately, because it's we need to have people speak up, talk about this stuff, and at least explain and educate people on what's happening. So before we dive into everything that's going on with the Twin Metals mine and what this moratorium actually is, why don't we talk about, for people who are listening, most probably have an idea of or at least an idea of the boundary waters themselves, but maybe just dive into the boundary waters, where it is in the world, what it is, and why it's so special to people like us.
Yeah, for sure. So Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness, it's a designated wilderness area in northeast Minnesota. Roughly 1.1 million acres of lakeland, wilderness, interconnected lakes, streams, rivers, only accessible by canoe and your own personal power. World-class fishing, hunting, camping, hiking, birding. It is open and accessible to everyone, from families bringing their infant in to grandparents taking their 50th anniversary trip, right? So it is a gorgeous, wonderful, super important, water-rich area here in Minnesota that is super important, obviously, to hunters and anglers, but also all outdoor recreationists across the country. And it's not only for Minnesotans, right? It's public land that's owned by everybody, and it's also recreated by people across the country as well. So super cool area. It also is super important to the outdoor recreation economy up in northeast Minnesota. There's tons of different outfitters and businesses that are ready and willing to help you on your journey and your first trip, or if you're again, your 30th or 40th trip in, right? You can use your own personal gear, or you can frequent one of those places and help give them business as well.
Yeah, for sure. And it's correct me if I'm wrong, but it is the most visited wilderness area in the country, right?
It is, yeah. It fluctuates, 10, 15,000 visitors a year, but, it's between 150 and 165,000 visitors a year that are marked via permitting, right? So the permits are accessible April 1st through October 1st. Outside of that, it's a lot of it dies down a little bit, and you have the folks that are going up to hunt and fish at the same time. We call it cast and blast, right? And then a lot of winter recreation for cross-country skiing, for ice fishing, for winter camping. So that number definitely increases depending upon what numbers you're looking at, for sure.
And that's a lot of people when you consider that it's all under your own personal power. It's
Yeah.
A lot of it, you can't access it via four-wheeler, side-by-side, or dirt bike or whatever. It's all, canoe in type stuff, portage.
Yeah, some of the border lakes, right, that are have portions where you can, snowmobile and stuff like that. But everything inside, you're carrying your own gear across portages. You're carrying your canoe. You can't have any, mechanical assistance, right? So if you're going ice fishing, you're not using a power auger. You're using a hand auger. So
Right.
yeah, you got to be very specific and the choices you make on where you're going to do that, because you got to put a lot of work in to get lines in the water there.
Yeah, absolutely. So so explain the Twin Metals mine and go back as far as you need to kind of paint the picture for people, like where this all started. Like, I mean, how long ago did Twin Metals decide that they wanted to place a mine near the Boundary Waters watershed?
I mean, this fight, really started gaining steam, around a decade ago, and it's played sort of hopscotch back and forth between, different administrations and approvals, denials, et cetera. Twin Metals getting leases removed. In 2023, the Department of Interior under Secretary Deb Haaland, under the Biden administration, instituted what's called a 20-year moratorium on mineral leasing in roughly 225,000 acres surrounding the Boundary Waters in the Superior National Forest. That moratorium, or a public land order, essentially bars any companies from starting a new sulfide or copper mine, which is what we're trying to prevent, and that's what Twin Metals is. So Twin Metals Minnesota is a subsidiary of Antofagasta, which is a Chilean mining conglomerate. They are seeking to mine for specifically copper and nickel and some other minerals as well, but those are really the main ones because of the rich deposit throughout northeast Minnesota that's called the Duluth Complex. Essentially, the issue here is that this mine is so close to the Boundary Waters border on a lake called Birch Lake, extremely water-rich environment. That area where that mine is proposed is upstream of the Boundary Waters. If it were to pollute, and as we know factually, all of this type of mine has, in some form, polluted the waterways surrounding it historically.
Yeah,
so
like 100% of the time, right? Like,
100%.
Yeah.
And just recently, Antofagasta, in one of their home turf mines, was fined nearly $800,000 for not following regulatory processes. So
Gotcha.
so this is a company that is not following their processes properly on their home turf, that is also trying to start a mine here for copper nickel mine. Let's be very clear on that. This isn't iron ore or taconite, which is the backbone of the Iron Range of northeast Minnesota, which again, a lot of organizations like ours, we make sure to point out that this isn't an anti-mining organization or movement. We're focused specifically on this mine because of the potential damage it has
Yeah.
in that area.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you're not anti-progress, you're not anti-extraction. It's trying to educate people on why this is a dangerous mine in the location that it's at. It's
Correct.
not so much, like, and even if the mining company, the people like doing all of the mining are doing everything to a T, there's still such a high chance of polluting like this massive amount of fresh water. Like it's hard for me to see the positive in that when like there's even a chance of polluting such an incredible place that has been protected for so long.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we can't recreate areas like this. We can't recreate cherished landscapes like the Boundary Waters that are important to everybody, across the board and across, America, the world, right? It is just so incredibly important that we keep, this is one of the most important resources, water, that we have. And, you reference, the water source itself. And I mean, so the Boundary Waters is in the Superior National Forest. The Superior National Forest, roughly 3 million acres, holds 20% of the fresh water in the entire national forest system, which is roughly 193 million acres. I mean, that is a national forest that is 2% of the collective whole of the national forest system, holding 20% of the fresh water, which is an incredible number, right? And that is what we're fighting for.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's like you said, water is such a precious resource that, I mean, even on the off chance that it like would be polluted is, I guess, I'm not a politician, right? So I'm not sitting there making these laws, and I'm not seeing, the back side of all of these things and why they might want to push this through and what money's flowing where and that kind of thing. But like just from a from somebody who likes to recreate in clean and wild places, it's like, well, that's a no-brainer. So what's going on right now as far as you said before we started this was like the 3-year anniversary of that moratorium, right? Like
Yeah,
this.
we're right there, right? And
Yeah.
it's supposed to be a 20-year moratorium to take a step back, allow for, let's be honest, either technology to catch up, or to decide on the fact that this is a space worth permanent protection through congressional action. And again, yeah, we're in the 3rd year of that. In 20 years, there's still a lot to go. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it was a collective effort and huge win for the outdoor industry, hunters, anglers, again, campers, hikers, folks that don't even recreate in the area. It was a historic collective win for everybody, and
Yeah.
an example across the board of how we do need to protect spaces like this. So, where we're at now is, we are in, of course, the Trump administration, and, leading up to January, there was public indication, Representative Pete Stauber of, who represents the district that the Boundary Waters is in.
Mm-hmm.
They were all pushing, publicly saying that they were going to approve this mine in some form, right? So the 20-year moratorium's in place. Twin Metals did not have its leases, still does not have its leases. And, just recently now, what did happen was Representative Pete Stauber introduced what's called a House Joint Resolution in the House, using a very obscure procedural measure called the Congressional Review Act to allow Congress, which is a Republican majority in both chambers, to review that 20-year moratorium and essentially overturn it. That is what the resolution states: overturn the 20-year moratorium. That moved incredibly fast.
Yes.
We're what, Tuesday here. It's less than 2 weeks ago that it was introduced, passed last week. So that now moves on to the Senate. The Senate has an opportunity here to stop that in its tracks. If this resolution were to pass the Senate, that goes to the president's desk, right? And then we move on to the next step, which, has been indicated numerous times since last summer, that those leases will be reinstated to Twin Metals.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of like the big moment right now,
Yeah. Yeah. So how do we know when the Senate is supposed to vote on this, or like how long we have to speak up or contact our representatives about this and make our voices heard?
I mean, the time is now, right? There's no better time than now, and ensuring that we get ahead of it and create as big of a stink as we possibly can. We don't know yet when the Senate is going to vote on this. I think, as we've seen across the country, there's a lot of other things going on at the moment. Though, again, it moved so fast through the House that, we expect this to be coming very soon. So being prepared for it, having a strong coalition behind it, which we have seen, and incredibly thankful for that. There's been so many folks, from outdoor industry to NGO that have really stepped up right now. And, you're sort of seeing that push that happened with Mike Lee's, public land sales piece, which I think is incredible. And, we just need to keep the foot on the gas, man, and flood the lines. You said earlier, we need to touch on what we can do. And really what folks can do is just continue blowing up those offices and making phone calls, letting your senators know right now that this is not the place for this mine, and to vote no on that resolution when it does come up in the Senate is super important. Getting involved with an organization, signing an action alert, every piece counts. Taking a meeting, with your local representative if you can. Every single thing you can do is super important. Social media is huge, right? Share, post, comment, tag, whole nine. I mean, it's like all hands on deck at this moment.
Yeah, and I still think the most powerful thing that people can do is call, right, and leave
Absolutely.
a message with their representative, their senator.
Yep.
And we'll put it in the show notes, like the number for the White House switchboard. It's super easy to call. When Mike Lee was trying to sell off, 3 million acres, I think everyone was putting the phone number out there, and showed how simple it was to like call and make your voice heard. And the
Yeah.
biggest thing, the biggest thing there is for every person that calls, they know there's another X number of people who are thinking the same thing. And
Yeah.
so it might not feel like you're doing all that much because you're probably just going to get in touch with either a voicemail or an aide. But just being able to like call, make your voice heard, does make a big difference, as we've seen. And
100%.
like you said, this moratorium was because who's to say that within 20 years there's a completely different technology where that is far safer, or something changes where you can do this in a way that does make sense. I mean, I don't know if depending on where this location probably never really makes sense because of the possibility of pollution.
Yeah. Likely
But
not, right? But
likely not. But it's like, I think the most important thing there was showing the fact that this was a way to take a step back and not be so short-sighted and try to force something through before we have all the answers on this. And
yeah,
so this
exactly.
this is definitely something that needs to be shut down as fast as possible, so we can have the time to figure out whether, like you said, like it needs permanent protection, which would be the best thing. So we're not having to do this every couple years and figure out how to get this shut down.
Yeah, I mean it's exhausting, but we all know what the outcome is that we want, and that is
Yeah,
right. You
yeah,
know, and it's important to put the issue fully on the table too, so people understand what is going on in the background. Just just last week when we saw Representative Stauber testify in the House Rules Committee, I mean, he essentially, got called out and asked a couple questions and admitted to the fact that, this is a foreign mining company. Yes, there is no guarantee that the minerals taken out through this mine will be processed and end up in the United States, since Antofagasta has a pen contract with smelters abroad in China. So once that material is shipped overseas and processed, it hits the global market. There's no guarantee that it comes back here. So trying to tie it into domestic, critical minerals dominance doesn't shake out whatsoever.
yeah,
And I mean, a proven
absolutely.
fact, and to be honest, he got called out and he just smirked, right? He's
Right.
like, he knows it, we know it.
Yeah,
So it's not really a talking point on that end anymore.
yeah. This
So how
isn't
do we
like
move?
a U.S.
Yeah.
first, type of
How,
situation. Yeah,
yeah. So how do we move past that, right? Let's talk about what it does mean then for Minnesota and for the United States. And at this moment, it's a proven fact that there's no guarantee that it actually helps the situation right now that they're touting.
right, right. Oh, so, um, what what all is Sportsmen for the Boundary Waters? Like, what can people do to help your organization specifically in this fight? Like, I mean, I know you said social media and stuff, but like, is there a bigger way for people to get involved in all this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, I mean, I think it's honestly as simple as getting more involved, as listening to these podcasts, as following the social media folks that are doing the good work, joining a conservation organization so you're educated, reading up. I think it's important to read up, what both sides are saying on the issue, for and against, right? I mean, get the information that you need and make the decision based on that information. We're certainly not pushing anything out there that isn't standard and factual, because we pride ourselves on ensuring that we're giving the proper information. But again, call offices, get involved, sign action alerts, follow folks on social media. There's people doing really good work, like backcountry hunters and anglers. And you're seeing folks like Meat Eater get involved, First Light, On X. I mean, all the way to Wilderness Society, Outdoor Alliance, Conservation Alliance. I mean, like, everybody is in this. You can be a part of that by ensuring that you are joining some of those organizations and staying educated on the issue. So then you know what to do and what actions to take when it's most important too.
Yeah, it seems like this is really an industry wide fight on behalf of the boundary waters. I mean, I had reached out to you about doing this podcast last week, and then right after that, I saw that Field and Stream put out an article about the issue and the
Yeah.
fact that it had gone through the House, and like, basically just stating everything that was going on. I think Travis Hall wrote that
Yeah.
piece,
Travis
and
has
he's all
been fantastic. Yeah.
yeah,
He's been covering this, to the T for a long time now, and I'm very thankful for that.
yeah, seems like he's always like on the ball when it comes to all of this stuff. So I was glad that Field and Stream was in on at least educating people on what's going on to help spread that message. So, I want to I want to hear some stories about the boundary waters too, because it's easy
Yeah.
to, it's easy to just like get into this kind of like, you almost feel like you're in a bit of a funk, right? You're in a rut where it's just like you're always trying to like preach to people like you got to call your representatives, you got to do these things. You got to step up. You got to make your voice heard. But like, I think it's important to also tell some stories about the places that we're trying to protect. So, I mean, you've been in this role. How long have you been in this role with Sportsmen for the Boundary Waters?
I am pushing a decade now. It'll be
I was
it'll be
I
10
was going to
years
say,
this year. Yeah.
yeah, I was going to say because you and I talked early on when I had bought the school bus
Yeah.
and was
Yeah.
roaming around talking about public land stuff. And I had originally planned on trying to get the bus up there and then go do a Boundary Waters trip, which still has never happened, which is crazy.
And we can still make that happen, no problem.
Still make it happen. But I was getting to think, I was like, man, like that's coming up on almost 10 years ago that I bought the bus and did all that stuff. So yeah, I figured you'd been in that role for a long time. How many trips have you taken into the Boundary Waters?
Boy. Well, I started going when I was 12 with my dad and his friends on um, spring fishing opener trips for lake trout. And like behind me, like that middle lake right there, that's Lake
Yep.
Tuscarora on
Okay.
the Gunflint, the east side. That's kind of like where I cut my cloth in the Boundary Waters. So, my first experiences were going up there, getting in like a day before opener, getting everything set up, the anticipation of being able to put a line in the water at midnight if you wanted to, just being used to going up there and, dealing with the elements, understanding the elements, just like kind of growing. I really feel like I grew up in the outdoors going to the Boundary Waters on those trips, right? Like there was a couple years when I first started going where, I mean, it snowed the entire time, but an incredible experience. And, a lot of folks, their first trip is going to be in the summer, where you're not really dealing or understanding like, the actual dangers of being
Mm-hmm.
out in the backcountry like that too, right? So I think it's a very educational experience too, and makes you understand, that you are not necessarily in control, but you need to understand how to be in it and
Yeah,
safely.
for sure.
So, but yeah, I think my dad waited to bring me in till I was 12 just because of, the group that it was and that, it's
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of guys, having fun and, allowing me to mature a little bit. But again, you know, I brought my girls for the first time when they were 2, right?
Yeah.
So, um, a different situation, but I wanted to make sure they got introduced early.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean those opening lake trout trips are so awesome. I so many cool stories of just 3-4 night trips where it's just hundreds of lake trout, and it's such a cool experience. The camaraderie of being around a campfire, having those conversations, even if you're having to warm up and you're cold and wet and miserable.
Mm-hmm.
Being out in a canoe and trolling, northern lights. I mean, the list goes on. It's just, I think as we all know, the folks that do this and frequent the outdoors in situations like this, is that there's really no other experience like it. It doesn't have to be the Boundary Waters. It really can be anywhere else. To truly understand how important the place is, you really need to experience it, right? And I would encourage people, if you ever have the opportunity to take that trip, even if it's, an overnight, something simple, something easy, and using one of the phenomenal outfitters that help folks out. But yeah, I mean, the amount of trips, I honestly don't know. It's been about 250 nights overnight, I think, over the
Yeah.
course of the years.
So
I
you're
took
sneaking
those.
up on a full year of being able to live in the boundary waters.
It is really like, it's funny that you mentioned this earlier. It's like the slog of it and doing this kind of work, like it almost pulls you back from it a little bit just because, I don't go as much. I'm also a dad now with two little girls, so that pulls away too. But as the work started, I think the trip started kind of pushing down a little bit, unless we were, taking folks for work, which we've done a couple times, which I think is, incredible how best to write a great story on the area, um, you know, other
Actually
than,
get a group of
being
people.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Right.
So yeah, I mean, I took those spring opener trips, religiously, until I was 17 or 18, and then it sort of flipped, and a lot of my friends started getting interested. They were coming, a few of them were coming, earlier than that. And then we just sort of took over and started, a big group of us started going a couple times a year too. And we weren't taking short trips.
Yeah.
There was a number of years where we were going 2 weeks. I think the longest one we took, my buddy Keith and we stayed for 17. And I remember we were actually sitting on a campsite on Tuscarora, and we had run out of food, and and a number of other things. And we were sitting there, I think we were like 21 or 22, and we looked at each other and we were like, probably time to go, right? And and fortunately, we had an employer that was okay with letting us do that. And there was a storm rolling in, and we decided to make the call. We could have stayed longer, but yeah, our traditional trips were a lot longer than that normal 3-4 day trip, and it really does take a few days to get acclimated and comfortable, right? Especially sleeping on the ground, as everybody knows. Your body just becomes used to it, and sort of syncs up with everything going on and with nature and the time and everything, right? So it's just
Yeah, I was gonna say it always takes a few days. Like,
yeah,
especially if it's been a while since you've been in the backcountry or, like kind of off the grid. Like, but once your like mind kind of slows down, especially if you're in a spot where you don't have any service, so you're like not, pulling your phone out and checking your phone all the time.
yeah, yeah,
If you can get to a space like that, it takes, like it does take a few days to like meld into it. But man, when you can get into that like flow state, that connection, like to what you're doing, and like it's amazing how little you really need to feel comfortable, to feel happy, to feel content out there doing it. Like you kind of just become part of the landscape instead of like working over it or through it, or like you're no longer trying to conquer it. You're just like out there with it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, naps on rocks on a little cliff, and in 20
Yeah.
mile an hour, winds become comfortable.
Yeah.
If you're wearing the right
Exactly.
stuff, if you're wearing the right
Yeah.
gear.
Yeah. And I don't think there's anything better than a nap out in the wild, like especially when it's like a little bit cold, but the sun is out, and you're just like, you can feel the warmth of the sun, like on, whatever shoulder you're, is pointing towards the sky and on the side of your face. And then you just
Yeah,
like out like a light.
yeah, seriously.
Yeah. I mean, most of the best naps I've ever taken have been on the side of a mountain, laying in on some little shelf in the sun, just
Yep.
cashed out after, 4 or 5 days of hiking hard or whatever. So,
Yeah,
um,
man.
yeah.
Yeah,
But like you
this
said,
is
it's
definitely
something
making
that
me feel
people need to try.
nostalgic.
Yeah. It's something that people need to try to experience. And again, like I've never been there, which is silly. It's stupid for me not to have made the trip yet. And it's going to happen. I've got a year and a half old now, but I'll probably try to sneak away, hopefully even this, spring or summer, and get out there for a few days just to go experience it. Because, as a photographer, like you look at the imagery that people come back with, and people that are just like simply going on like a fun trip, like it's the amount of good photography from bad photographers
Yeah, I was
like
gonna say
makes
there's
me
no bad picture. I don't think. I
right.
don't think there's a bad picture.
Yeah,
You know?
especially certain times of the year when the colors are changing and stuff. I mean, obviously that's in the fall and spring, but like just the amount of diversity in like the foliage and stuff, and just like the rocks and the whole thing, all of it. Like you just Google like Boundary Water images, and you just like want to go spend time there.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's a
Well,
pretty
I mean,
incredible spot.
fall is an amazing time in the Boundary Waters. And for us as hunters and anglers, it provides a really unique opportunity too. I mean, the fishing is great, in late September into October, and you can also hunt for rough grouse. I mean, folks do take really cool backcountry trips for like black bear and whitetail too. But you know, I I've done a number of those cast and blast trips, especially for like towards the end of September for lake trout. The
Hmm.
water gets colder again, so like the lake trout are coming shallower. Um, it's pretty cool when you can spend a day fishing and then take a walk in the deep woods of northeast Minnesota and bag a couple grouse and come back for dinner with everybody. So
Yeah, because I know. I mean, I think if you're going to do a cast and blast, I think rough grouse is the way to go. Because I've heard that, like people that go up and try to whitetail hunt, like it's not a dense population of whitetails up there.
right,
It seems.
right,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it seems
not
like a
not
cool hunt.
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's certainly not dense, and I mean, there's people have their opinions on the reasoning for that as well, but yeah, it's truly an incredible opportunity for that type of hunt, especially with canoeing as well, and your own personal power to make that happen.
yeah. And I was going to ask you, you've done a bunch of foraging stuff up there too, right? Isn't
Yeah,
that kind
yeah.
of up your alley? I feel like I remember. Didn't Sick Manta do a little project on you, film of stuff you were doing up there?
Yeah, yeah, I did hook up with Kyle and Donnie.
Yeah,
That was,
a
oh
while ago
gosh,
now.
yeah, yeah, 5, 6, 7 years ago, and we actually filmed that um, up by my buddy's cabin where his land is near Crosby. So,
Okay,
I mean, another
gotcha.
kind of an example of a mining town turned,
Yeah,
incredible outdoor recreation area in the Cuyuna area
for
too. So,
sure. Yeah.
but really cool space. And yeah, we spent today kind of doing some foraging specifically for mushrooms. I think it was like mid-October, so we're right at the end. But yeah, I mean that's a whole nother piece, right? I mean, if you're at least slightly savvy or have a good book that shows like the top things you can forage, it's a great opportunity throughout the summer into fall as well.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Another thing I wanted to touch on too is so this, you know, the way they went about like getting this through the House, right? So this using kind of an obscure rule to like put this vote through. This goes beyond just protection of the boundary waters, right? This
Yep.
has implications for other public lands. So can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so the Congressional Review Act has only traditionally been used for federal rules, right? To review a federal rule, like a land management rule, for instance. A public land order, mineral withdrawal, there's a few different names for it. That's a federal action. That is a situation that is unprecedented because it has not been used in that fashion, and it is very easy, especially in this situation, to overturn something with a simple majority, in the Senate now, with traditional legislation needing a 60 vote count in order to
Right,
pass. So a
right.
simple majority with the Senate being 53 to 47 right now could pass this. And the unfortunate aspect of that is that using that CRA, the Congressional Review Act, also ensures if it's passed that a future administration cannot take the same action for the area.
Gotcha.
And this sets a precedent, if it is successful, for Congress to target other public land orders across the country. So this isn't a singular issue. This isn't just Minnesota. This is about protections across the country that have existed for a while or were just implemented recently.
Yeah. So if you're, for anybody listening to this, if you're like, well, I don't know anything about the Boundary Waters, I'll probably never go visit. This has much larger implications than just this 1.1 million acres, of beautiful wilderness in Minnesota. Like Lucas said, like if this sets precedent, it makes it a lot easier for protections to be stripped for public lands across the country.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
It's it's a procedural loophole at this point, right? And technically, the Senate parliamentarian is supposed to rule on whether or not using this path forward is lawful.
sure.
Now, we're unsure whether or not, and there has been an example where the Senate has bucked the parliamentarian and still moved forward. So it's possible that, they say, well, too bad, we're gonna do this anyways, and that's a big problem. That's a big problem for public lands. That's a big problem for the places we care about across the country, our cherished landscapes and places that we recreate in, that we hunt, fish, camp, hike, bring our kids to, that we want them to be able to experience, and for future generations, right? I mean, we're talking about the potential for, millions of acres of protections across the country to be overturned using this simple procedural tool that only needs a simple majority in the chambers at this point, which is, in incredibly concerning. I mean, to put it political, but I mean, it's a terrible move, and it's very bad for everybody.
Yeah. So if you're on, if you were listening to this and you're on the fence about like, well, I could call, but maybe I'll save my, voicemail for something that I deem, bigger in my own head or something that's more local to me. I think people need to understand that this, even though it's not happening maybe in your state or even something that you even ever plan to go visit, like this is something that is going to affect all of us if we don't end up on the right side of this.
Yeah,
So that should be enough motivation for people to speak up and understand, how big this issue really is right now.
and it's such an easy step to take. I mean, I get it. I mean, there's can be some nerves, calling a calling a congressional office, but once you're connected, it's very easy. Using that switchboard, the congressional switchboard, super easy. You'll talk to an operator, you'll tell them, your zip code, your district, whatever it is, they will connect you immediately with that office.
Hmm.
And all you have to do is tell them to vote no on this and tell them why. And we've been talking about this, through this entire podcast. Um, Everybody that's putting stuff on social media, on the websites, gives clear directive on, what those talking points are, what can be said, why this is important for the Senate to vote no on this. So making that call, we got to keep hammering that, make that call, flood the lines, flood the switchboard, make sure that these folks that make these decisions that are supposed to be working for us make these decisions based on the public opinion.
Yep, absolutely. And for anybody who's nervous about making a phone call, there's a very, very small percentage chance that you're actually going to talk to your representative. Like most of the time, you're going to get their aide or you're going to get a voicemail.
Yep.
So,
And
don't freak out if you do actually.
they're taking notes. I mean, they're
Yes.
marking, they're letting this many people call today to say, hell no to this. This many people called in support, right? Like they are taking notes, and those representatives, those senators, they are listening to that for sure.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Another thing too is, go if you want to help out and you're listening to this, go make a donation to Sportsmen's for the Boundary Waters because, when Lucas makes a phone call, he can say, I'm calling on behalf of this many people who have spoke up through our organization,
Yeah.
or join Backcountry Hunters and Anglers or join one of the other organizations that's speaking up about this because even though you might be making a phone call on behalf of yourself, when the leaders of these organizations call or go and testify or speak up, they can say, I'm here on behalf of 200,000 members of this organization or 75,000 members of this organization. So
Yeah.
the more involved we are in conservation groups in general, the more voice we have collectively, like when just a few people who have a little bit more access, to lobbies and aides and senators and representatives, you can make a bigger splash just by simply going out and getting involved that way as well.
Yeah, and that's absolutely how we get folks, to DC. this is a collective effort. And yeah, I mean, donating does help. I always like to say we're a small but mighty organization.
Yep.
We
Because
are
you guys are not a membership based organization, right? It's just donations.
correct.
Yep.
Correct.
Yep. Yeah.
Perhaps we'll get there someday, but we're
Yeah.
currently not a membership organization. But we really are a part of that top line. That spear, the
Hmm.
spirit. I would say that is helping organize this community around this issue. So we are the ones that are working with those hook and bullet folks to get them involved, which is super important right now. Hunters and anglers speaking up is the most important voice at this moment, especially with those Republican offices. They listen more. But it is also important to work collectively with the environmental community at this point too, right?
Absolutely.
This should not be a political issue. This should not be Democrat or Republican. This shouldn't be how you recreate. We should be working on this together for the collective good. I've liked to say, like, let's dust the book off of working together and reread a little bit and figure out how we
Yeah.
can do this, and ensure that we're working that we're doing this, collectively to make this happen, because that is important. Personal differences and opinions need to be set aside, especially, on the political spectrum, to make this happen.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to something like the boundary waters, it goes so far beyond just hunting and fishing. Selfishly, a lot of us who, hunt or fish, we want to protect things, in wild places because we like to go shoot rough grouse, or we go like to hunt whitetail deer or elk, or, go fish for lake trout. Like, we like to protect the resource because we like to go out and consume, things off of the landscape. But it goes so far beyond that. I mean, it's clean air and water. It's erosion. It's everything
Yes.
that these waters protect, like, for the entire country that we're fighting for. This goes so far beyond hunting and fishing,
Yeah.
that
Light
I just
noise pollution,
right,
wetland protection. I mean, like, the footprint of this potential project is enormous, thousands of acres,
right,
and right on
right.
right on the shoreline of a lake that is, directly flowing into the boundary waters through the Kawishwe River. So, yeah, it's mind-boggling, and it's important, for folks to understand that proximity to what we're talking about too.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, I think, I mean, this is a little, 45 minutes is great. I just wanted to make sure that everybody had the information about what's going on. Maybe
Sure.
just reiterate one more time, like, where people can follow you guys and what you're up to. And then maybe, if you want to plug any other organizations that people should follow along, go for it. But I really wanted to get this out, because it's so timely right now.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Sure. So, yeah, I mean, for folks to get involved, in this incredibly timely issue, again, so this is HJ 140. It's a House resolution that was just passed last week that aims to overturn the 20-year mineral withdrawal, or the public land order that we've been talking about. It's moving now to the Senate. That could happen at any moment. So it is incredibly important that folks get on those phones, call their congressperson through the congressional switchboard, visit sportsmanbwca.org if you'd like to support us. We also have an action alert that sends messages directly to your senator, with something that we've typed up that you can adjust if you'd like to put your own personal touch on it. Ensuring that you're following folks on social media. There's a bunch of great organizations that are involved in this, like Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, like Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership. The list goes on. We have a great partnership in Save the Boundary Waters, who is doing the work on, across the board in the environmental community as well, as we all need to come together on this. So make those phone calls, support your local organization, join an organization, send a message, do whatever you can, follow us on social media to stay updated. We just, we're super appreciative of the support, of you and Field and Stream, and of those folks that are heavily involved in this issue right now, because it is an important one. And as we said, it has implications to affect, protections across the country.
And I'm going to just say the White House switchboard phone number is 202-456-1414. This is the main line available for general inquiries, and I'll get you connected, and you can have them, basically tell, like you said earlier, you can give them your zip code or which representative or senator do you want to talk to or leave a message for, and it'll get you connected. Lukas, thanks so much for hopping on today and explaining kind of like the boundary waters in general, and then just what this mine would mean for that area. But then above and beyond that, the implications this has for public lands across the board. So just can't thank you enough for taking the time to talk about all this stuff while you're in the middle of the fight.
Yeah, and I'd take the time, any day. I really appreciate you reaching out and giving me the opportunity to spread the word on this because it is so important. So again, honor and a pleasure. Appreciate it.
Yep, absolutely. Well, we'll catch up again soon, but thanks again, and have a good rest of the year. We'll see if we can get this killed.
Yeah, and we got to get you up there. So we'll connect later and put that trip together that we need to do.
All right, sounds good.
All right, thanks.